The Arizona house was nothing like our old one. It was big, too big, all adobe walls, echoey tile floors, and more windows than a child could count. But the thing I remember most vividly was the hallway. Our new home had a long hallway leading from the living room to the bedrooms. It was always dark, oddly dark. Even with lights on at both ends, it never felt fully lit. Shadows clung to the corners like they had a right to be there. My room was at the very end, across from Jacob's. My parents' bedroom was closer to the front. I hated that. The first week in that house, I cried every night. My mom would lie with me until I fell asleep, and if she didn't, I would scream until she came back. I would demand she check under the bed, in the closet, even behind the curtains, even though we had just done it minutes earlier. I knew monsters weren't real, but the hallway felt like it didn't know that. One night, in late August, the heat humming outside like a living thing, I couldn't sleep. My mom had already fallen asleep next to me, breathing softly. I was clutching our book from story time, running my fingers over the pages, looking at the pictures in the dim light from the nightlight. And then I felt it. I didn't hear anything. There wasn't a creak, no whisper, no footstep, but the air changed. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and my skin buzzed like I had touched static. My chest felt tight, but I didn't know why. I looked at the window, nothing but the backyard, quiet and still. Then, instinctively, I looked at the doorway, and she was there. A woman, standing in my open doorway, taller than my mom or dad. Her body was almost featureless, just a dark, blurry figure that didn't make sense, like a shadow that had pulled itself from the wall. But I could see the shape of her bobbed hair, the flow of her long dress, and the pale shimmer where her eyes should have been. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just watched. I tried to shake my mom awake, tried to whisper her name, but she wouldn't stir. She felt like a weight beside me, solid and immovable. Then the woman took a step forward. And another. The whispers started as soon as she moved, soft, overlapping, like dozens of voices all speaking at once. They weren't harsh, they were sad, loving, too loving. Come, I've missed you, my baby. Let me keep you safe. She was at the foot of my bed now. I could feel her, like cold radiating off a block of ice. I was frozen. And then, God help me, I reached out. I don't know why. Maybe I was hypnotized. Maybe part of me believed her. Her hand, long-fingered and cold as glass, closed around mine. The whispering crescendoed in that moment, like they were all screaming through tears. I'll keep you safe this time. Her hand squeezed, not cruelly, but urgently, like she didn't want to let go, like she was afraid she'd lose me again. She started to pull me gently forward, and I knew, deep in my bones, that if I let her, if I stood up and walked with her, I would never come back. Not to my mom, not to my room, not to myself. The terror that had been building inside me broke loose, and I buried my face into my mom's side, crying as hard as I could. Her warmth was like sunlight. I clung to her like a life raft, and just like that, the woman was gone. The next morning, I told my parents everything. They exchanged tired glances. My dad checked the locks, the windows. Nothing had been disturbed. He assured me I had a nightmare. And even my mom, though she hugged me tighter than usual, nodded in agreement. I tried to believe it. I needed to believe it. But I never forgot that feeling. The weight of her hand, the sound of her whispers, the way she looked at me like I belonged to her. Years later, she never came back like that, but sometimes when I was walking alone down the hallway, I'd feel a presence at my back, not malicious, just aware. Other times I'd feel a soft touch on my shoulder, like someone brushing past me kindly. I never told anyone again. I buried the memory like an old toy I was too scared to play with. Years passed. I moved out. College, jobs, relationships. Then one evening, during a visit home, I was sitting outside with my mom. The sun was setting, and the wind was making the chimes near the patio dance. We were sipping iced tea, talking about nothing, and I said, casually, "Do you remember when I was little and I said I saw that woman in the hallway?" She was quiet. Then she said, "What do you remember?" I described her. The hair, the dress, the height, the whispers. My mom stared into her tea. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the glass. "I didn't tell you this before. You were just a baby, but I've seen her too." I didn't breathe. She went on. "It started a few weeks after we moved in. I would wake up early with your dad for work. I'd see movement in the hallway. At first, I thought it was him, but one morning I saw the figure again and realized he was in the shower. So I followed it. She was standing in your doorway. I thought I was imagining it, but she turned toward me. I couldn't see her face, just her silhouette, tall and still. And then she vanished. I screamed. I told you and Jacob we were going out for pancakes, but I was shaking the whole time. I didn't know what to say. I felt cold. She never felt angry to me. Sad, maybe. Lonely. Like she wanted to love something she lost. And then came Dad. Just as we were sitting in silence, my dad walked outside and smiled. "What are you two gossiping about?" I hesitated, then with a smirk, I said, "We were talking about the shadow woman I saw when I was little." His face changed. The smile dropped. His eyes widened. "You both have seen her too?" Truth spills out. We sat in stunned silence. Then Dad sat down, rubbed his temples, and sighed like he'd been holding in a breath for years. "I never told either of you. Didn't want to scare anyone. Didn't want to sound crazy. But yeah, I've seen her." We begged him to explain. "She walks the hallway, late at night, sometimes early morning. Just passes by. I thought I was dreaming the first few times, until she looked at me once. She didn't have a face, just light, like light trying to remember how to be human." He looked at me. "She never comes in our room, just walks toward yours." Who is she? That night, none of us could sleep. We stayed up trying to make sense of it. My mom brought out old photo albums. We started digging into the house's history. It had been built in the early 90s. The owner, a single woman, lost her child in a drowning accident, moved out shortly after. We found one old black and white photo of her in a local archive. She had bobbed hair, wore a long vintage-style dress, and something in her eyes. She looked like she was still listening for a child that never answered. Now, I'm 28 now. My parents still live in that house. When I visit, I stay in the guest room. I don't go to the end of the hallway. Sometimes I hear soft footsteps, feel the cold touch of a hand on my shoulder. She's still here, still watching, but I'm not afraid anymore, because now I understand. She isn't a monster. She isn't angry. She's a mother, looking for a child. And maybe, just maybe, she thought that child was me.